From LPGA pros completely losing it at rules officials, to golf Karens distracting players with everything on the line, these are the most controversial moments in women's golf that happened in 2025. Few things frustrate a golfer more than standing in the fairway waiting for someone who needs 4 practice swings and 3 looks at the line before every single shot. Round 1 of the 2025 U.S. Women's Open at Erin Hills paired Charley Hull, one of the fastest players on the LPGA, with Nelly, Korda, and Lexi Thompson. Hull and Korda play like they've got a doctor's appointment they can't be late to, while Thompson plays like she's got nowhere else to be. The very first green told the whole story, with Hull already shaking her head and staring at the sky, showing the kind of body language you see from someone about to say something they'll regret. And it only went downhill from there. Cameras caught Hull sitting on the grass near the 9th tee, waiting for Thompson to finish putting on the 8th green, just dropped down on the tee box like she'd accepted this was her life now. Social media had a field day with that image. Hull has never held back when it comes to slow play, calling for 2-stroke penalties for bad times and saying that if you rack up 3 violations, you should lose your tour card and go back to Q school to earn it again. That would end slow play overnight, she said. And the woman isn't asking for gentle reminders, she wants blood. Their front 9 consumed 2.5 hours, and the full round dragged past 5.5, which is 90 minutes longer than it should be. And somehow officials never put them on the clock, not even once. Thompson stayed quiet during the week but fired back on Instagram a few days later, pointing out the group ahead caused the holdup and that they waited on almost every hole. "We were never out of position, warned, or on the clock," she wrote, adding that she's not as fast as her playing partners, but she's also the last person who wants to be out there for 6 hours. Fair point, but here's the thing. When you're grouped with 2 players who finish rounds in under 4 hours on a normal day, you're going to look slow by comparison. The tension was obvious to everyone watching. Speed matters in golf, and so does the lack of it. Next up, imagine spending years chasing a dream, finally getting your foot in the door, and then watching that door get slammed shut by a rule change you never saw coming. Golf has its traditions, from the etiquette to the dress codes to the unwritten rules everyone just follows. But in late 2024, the LPGA and USGA wrote a new rule that split the sport right down the middle. December brought the new policy stating that starting January 2025, any player assigned male at birth who went through male puberty couldn't compete on the LPGA Tour, Epson Tour, Ladies European Tour, or in USGA Women's Championships. The only exception applied to players who could prove they transitioned before age 12 or before the earliest stage of puberty, and everyone else was out. That rule ended one career overnight, and it belonged to Haley Davidson. Davidson played men's college golf at Wilmington University before transitioning in 2015 and had gender-affirming surgery in 2021. For years, she worked on mini tours, chasing the dream of playing professional women's golf, and in October 2024, she finished 95th at Stage 2 of Q School, earning limited Epson Tour status. Not a golden ticket, but a foot in the door after years of work finally paying off. Weeks later, the new rule kicked that door shut. The policy didn't appear out of nowhere, as 275 female professional golfers had signed a letter demanding change. The Independent Women's Forum organized it, pointing to studies claiming players who went through male puberty retained a 30% advantage in driving distance even after years of hormone therapy. Davidson hit back on Instagram, writing that the greatest achievement she'd earned in her life had been taken from her. She pointed out she got outdriven by almost everyone in her Q School groups, asking how she could have an advantage when she couldn't even keep up off the tee. The LPGA called the policy science-based and focused on competitive fairness, while critics called it exclusion wrapped in corporate language. Neither side was budging. What's clear is that this wasn't about one player, as it was the sport drawing a line in the sand. Half the golf world thinks the change was long overdue, and the other half thinks it went way too far. That argument isn't going anywhere anytime soon. Moving on, what's the secret to landing a spot in an LPGA event? Apparently it's not your handicap or your tournament wins, but rather a famous last name and a social media following bigger than some small countries. That's exactly what happened when an 18-year-old ranked 461st in the American Junior Golf Association received a sponsor exemption to compete against the best female golfers on the planet at the Annika, one of the most prestigious events on tour. Everyone knew Kai Trump wasn't getting that invite because of her swing, as the tournament organizers wanted her 6 million followers and her last name. Simple as that. Critics came out swinging, arguing she wasn't good enough, and took a spot from someone who actually deserved it. And honestly, they had a point. Trump had finished no higher than 24th in 3 AJ starts that year, averaging 83.56 over 9 rounds. And those aren't numbers that get you noticed anywhere, let alone at a professional event. Tournament host Annika Sorenstam defended the decision hard, saying it was about growing the game, giving young players opportunities, and bringing new eyes to women's golf rather than focusing on winning. A Golf Monthly poll asked fans if Trump deserved the exemption, and nearly 70% said absolutely not. Round 1 turned into a disaster with 9 bogeys, 2 double bogeys, and 0 birdies, leaving her dead last in the 108-player field. Trump admitted afterward that the nerves completely destroyed her and that the jump from junior golf to the pros was bigger than she expected. Round 2 went better with a 75 featuring 4 birdies and a shot that nearly went in for her first hole-in-one, showing real improvement. But she still finished 18 over for the tournament, dead last, and 17 shots behind the cut line. Meanwhile, Ann Sturry Dindunnen, a Wake Forest player who earned her exemption through college performance, made the cut and finished T56. One player earned her way in while the other received a golden ticket, and the results said everything. But hey, if the goal was clicks, controversy, and a nationwide debate about who deserves what in professional golf, mission absolutely accomplished. Up next, golf produces plenty of dramatic moments, from clutch putts under pressure to meltdowns on the back nine to heartbreaking misses when it matters most. But watching a player collapse on the course and not get back up creates a different kind of drama, the scary kind. July 10, 2025 marked round 1 of the Evian Championship in France, where Charley Hull was playing solid golf and sitting at 1 under through 12 holes. She'd finished T12 in back-to-back majors heading into this one. Everything was clicking, and this looked like her week, and that's when her body decided otherwise. On the 3rd hole, Hull suddenly felt dizzy and went down near a greenside bunker. Medical staff rushed over. She sat there for a few minutes, told everyone she was fine, and kept playing. Gutsy move, probably the wrong one. Right after hitting her drive on the 4th tee, Hull collapsed again, and this time was different. Her eyes rolled back and she was unconscious for over a minute while spectators froze and players in her group didn't know what to do. Medical staff surrounded her. They put her on a stretcher and carried her off the course, creating images that were hard to watch. One of the most popular players in women's golf, flat on her back, being wheeled away from a major championship she had every chance of winning. Hull had been battling a virus all week, it turned out. She received IV treatment at the medical tent and thankfully didn't need to go to the hospital, but her tournament was done and another major chance was gone. Later that night, she posted on Instagram about struggling with a virus all week and feeling a lot better, just gutted she couldn't play the weekend. She also admitted she had no memory of the second collapse, and the first thing she remembered thinking when she came to was, "Where the hell am I?" The whole thing served as a scary reminder that these athletes are human. Sometimes the body doesn't care about your preparation or how badly you want something, and sometimes it just shuts down. Now here's a stat that doesn't make any sense, no matter how you look at it. Nelly Korda posted better numbers in 2025 than she did during her 7-win season in 2024, with a better scoring average, more birdies, and longer drives, yet she finished the year with exactly 0 victories. Let that sink in. Better stats, no trophies. In 2024, Korda was untouchable with 7 wins, including 5 in a row, a major championship, and world #1 status by a mile. She wasn't just the best player in women's golf, she was playing a different game than everyone else. And that's when 2025 happened. 19 events brought 0 missed cuts, 9 top 10s, and 2 runner-up finishes. Her scoring average dropped from 69.44, driving distance jumped from 269 to 274 yards, and she made 335 birdies compared to 258 the year before. Every single number went in the right direction, except the one that matters. Wins stayed at 0. Her closest call came at the U.S. Women's Open at Erin Hills during the final round on the final hole when she had a chance. Standing over her approach on 18, she hit what she later called the best shot of her entire season. Adrenaline sent it 10 yards long, landing in the one spot she'd told herself on Monday she couldn't miss. She made bogey while Maja Stark won the tournament, and Korda walked off with another second-place finish and nothing to show for it. "If I could get one shot back, that would be it," she admitted afterward, adding that the one thing you want to do is hold the trophy at the end of the day. By August, Gino Thitikul had taken over the world #1 ranking, and the throne Korda owned for years now belonged to someone else. When asked to sum up her season, Korda didn't sugarcoat it, calling it a grind and saying success is never linear, and it honestly comes down to sometimes one shot. Here's what made the whole thing even stranger. The 2025 LPGA Tour produced 29 different winners, the most parity in tour history. Being great wasn't enough anymore, and in 2025, even near perfect didn't guarantee a thing. Next up, for years the LPGA watched from a safe distance while the men's game completely tore itself apart over Saudi money. LIV Golf versus the PGA Tour. Players jumping ship, lawsuits everywhere, press conferences turning into public feuds. The women's tour stayed out of it, made it clear they wanted no part of that chaos. That changed on November 5, 2025. Just 4 months into the job, new LPGA Commissioner Craig Kessler dropped a bombshell. The LPGA announced a partnership with Golf Saudi and the Saudi Public Investment Fund. The same PF behind LIV Golf. The same money that fractured professional golf and split locker rooms in half. The deal introduced the Aramco Championship at Shadow Creek in Las Vegas, a $4 million event co-sanctioned with the Ladies European Tour and scheduled for April 2026. It also marked something historic and controversial. This would be the first US-based women's tour event backed directly by Saudi investment. Kessler didn't tiptoe around it. He defended the move aggressively, calling it progress. He said the board questioned why it hadn't happened sooner. From his perspective, this was about growing the global schedule, increasing purses, and making sure women's golf didn't fall behind financially. But that explanation didn't land with everyone. Saudi Arabia's human rights record doesn't disappear just because the check's clear. The murder of journalist Jamal Khashoggi, restrictions on women's rights. Every sports partnership tied to Saudi money carries that weight, and critics were quick to point out that women's golf had now stepped directly into that controversy. What made it even more uncomfortable was the timing. Just months earlier, former Commissioner Molly Marcoux Samaan had resigned after intense criticism over leadership issues. Throughout her tenure, she had avoided Saudi partnerships entirely. Kessler arrived and almost immediately did the one thing she never would. Several players weren't quiet about it either. Angela Stanford, Stacey Lewis, both had previously voiced opposition to Saudi involvement in women's golf. Now their own tour was officially in business with the same funding source they'd criticized. Supporters called it necessary, more money, bigger events, better opportunities for players who already lag far behind the men in earnings. Critics called it selling out principles for a paycheck, and that's the uncomfortable truth. Whether this move represents progress or compromise depends entirely on where you stand. But one thing became very clear in 2025. The LPGA's relationship with Saudi money is no longer hypothetical. It's real, it's official, and there's no turning back. Coming in next, ever had one tiny mistake cost you everything? Now imagine that mistake lasting exactly 16 seconds. May 2nd, 2025, at the Black Desert Championship in Utah, Chisato Uiai, a 22-year-old from Japan, was grinding through round 2 while sitting right on the cut line at 3 under. Every single shot mattered. Earlier that year, the LPGA had rolled out its toughest pace of play policy ever, and the penalties were brutal. 1 to 5 seconds over your allotted time meant a fine, 6 to 15 seconds brought a one-stroke penalty, and 16 seconds or more triggered an automatic 2-stroke penalty with no discussion. EY reached the par 3 8th hole, her 17th of the round, and took a little too long. Officials clocked her at 16 seconds over the limit. The penalty hit immediately, turning her par into a double bogey and her 71 into a 73. The cut sat at 3 under while she finished at 1 under. The math was brutal. She missed the weekend by exactly 2 shots, the same 2 shots the penalty added. Without that violation, she makes the cut, plays Saturday and Sunday, and earns a paycheck. Instead, she was packing her bags. But the LPGA didn't stop there, announcing the penalty on X and naming EY directly, broadcasting her violation to millions of followers. In a sport where slow play penalties almost never make news, they put a young player on full blast in front of the entire golf world. Critics called it public shaming, and while the rule was technically fair since rules are rules, announcing it to everyone when the penalty itself had already ruined her week felt like piling on, like making an example out of someone who was already paying the price. Here's the twist though. 1 month later, Chisato Iwai won the Mexico Riviera Maya Open for her first LPGA title. 4 weeks after being publicly called out, she was lifting a trophy. Golf has a way of knocking people down, but Iwai proved it doesn't always keep them there. Here we go with the next one. Ever made a tiny mistake that completely ruins your day? Now imagine making that mistake at a major championship with the entire golf world watching. Heather Angel worked years for her spot at the KPMG Women's PGA Championship, finishing 5th at the LPGA Professionals Championship to get there. 2-time South Florida PGA Teacher of the Year and Director of Instruction at Fiddler's Creek in Naples, she had more than a decade as a playing professional behind her. This wasn't some rookie on a hot streak, but rather a veteran finally getting her second shot at a major, the kind of moment you work your whole career for. Thursday at PGA Frisco was miserable with triple-digit heat, a 10-mile walk across the course, and rounds dragging past 6 hours, the kind of day that breaks you mentally and physically. Angel fought through it and posted a 15 over 87. Not pretty, but she survived, including a double bogey 6 on the par 5 16th hole. And that's when she signed her scorecard with a 5 instead of a 6. 1 number and 1 stroke is all it takes. Rule 3.3b doesn't care about your intentions, doesn't care how exhausted you are, and doesn't care that you've been battling the heat for 6 hours straight. Sign for a score lower than you made and you're disqualified with no appeals, no do-overs, and no exceptions. Angel explained later she'd been fighting health issues for years, blood sugar problems that caused brain fog, especially in extreme conditions like that day. She also revealed that officials never mentioned a new 15-minute grace period to correct scoring errors, and by the time they reached out 45 minutes later, the window had already closed with nothing she could do. Her integrity got questioned across every golf outlet while social media piled on. A club pro finally gets her moment at a major, and one wrong digit ends everything before the weekend even starts, leaving her dream over and bags packed. all because of one number on a piece of paper. The worst part is that Angel knew something felt wrong when she handed in that card. But after 6 hours in that heat, the mind plays tricks, numbers blur together, and focus slips. By the time you realize the mistake, it's already too late, and golf doesn't give you a second chance to fix it. Moving on to the next, most golfers go viral for incredible shots or clutch moments, but Charley Hull went viral for smoking a cigarette while signing autographs. And honestly, that might be the most Charley Hull thing that's ever happened. It started at the 2024 US Women's Open at Lancaster Country Club, when Hull was walking toward the range with hands full and fans along the ropes called out for autographs. Most players would wave them off or promise to come back, but Hull just kept the cigarette dangling from her lips and signed anyway without missing a beat. Someone caught it on camera and the video exploded to over 2.3 million impressions, with comparisons to John Daly flooding the internet along with memes everywhere. Overnight, Hull went from well-respected pro to full-blown cult hero. When asked about it, Hull just laughed it off, saying it's actually quite funny, all over a cigarette. She explained she'd picked up smoking to quit vaping, and her logic was that you can vape anywhere, so she vaped constantly, but cigarettes make you go outside, so she'd smoke less. Whether that math actually worked is up for debate. She also dropped a detail that explained a lot, mentioning her dad smokes 40 a day since he was 12 years old and now he's 75, and that her whole family smokes, so it's not something she's noticed being odd. The story didn't stop there, as March 2025 brought Hull's decision to quit, and because she can't do anything quietly, she turned it into a public bet. Playing at Sunningdale Golf Club with fellow pro Ryan Evans, Hull handed over her pack of cigarettes and made an announcement about making the decision to stop smoking and doing a 10 grand bet, saying if she picks up a cigarette in the next 2 months, she'll give him 10 grand. That's roughly 13,000 US dollars riding on willpower, and Evans signed the cigarette pack as proof while joking about listing it on eBay. A week later, Hull posted an update saying 1 whole week without smoking and don't miss it one bit, no cravings, only a loss of appetite. By summer, she confirmed on TalkSport she was still smoke-free and using nicotine patches. She also revealed the habit was connected to her 2023 ADHD diagnosis, as smoking had become a coping mechanism that spiraled out of control. The whole saga was pure Hull, unfiltered and unapologetic, living completely by her own rules. When your personal growth involves 5-figure bets and autographed cigarette packs potentially hitting auction sites, you're not like everyone else and you're not pretending to be.
Why don't you throw me one of those? You ready for this?
Yeah, stop the buggy, we need to light it.
What do I do? I mean, I smoke cigars.
Smoke it like a cigar, but inhale it. Now breathe in. Now inhale it into your lungs.
What made the whole thing resonate with fans was how real it felt. No PR spin, no carefully crafted statements, just Hull being Hull. In a sport full of polished media training and sponsor-friendly answers, she stood out by not caring what anyone thought. Whether she was sitting on a tee box frustrated with slow play, collapsing at a major, or betting 10 grand on quitting cigarettes, Hull does things her own way. And that's exactly why golf fans can't get enough of her. She's not trying to be a role model, she's not trying to build a brand, she's just being herself, and in 2025, that's become rare in professional sports. Most athletes hire teams to manage their image, carefully plan every post, and avoid saying anything that might upset a sponsor. Hull does the opposite. She says what she thinks, does what she wants, and lets the cameras catch whatever they catch. The smoking video could have been a disaster for her reputation. Instead, it made her more popular than ever. Fans flooded her comments with support, merchandise sales went up, interview requests piled in from outlets that had never covered women's golf before, all because she signed some autographs with a cigarette in her mouth and didn't apologize for it. That's the Charley Hull effect. She turned a bad habit into a viral moment, turned quitting into a public spectacle, and turned the whole thing into another reason why she's one of the most talked about players in the game. Love her or not, you're paying attention. And in golf, that's half the battle. Alright, last one. If you wrote this as a movie script, nobody would believe it. 5 players in a playoff, grandstands being used as backboards, a near whiff on live television, and a champion who almost drowned while celebrating her win. Welcome to the 2025 Chevron Championship. April 27, 2025, at the club at Carlton Woods in Texas marked the first major of the women's season, and absolute chaos unfolded from the first hole to the last. This was supposed to be the crown jewel of women's golf, the event everyone circles on their calendar. Instead, it turned into a circus. The 18th hole became famous for all the wrong reasons after organizers positioned the grandstand so close to the back of the green that players started using it as a safety net. Instead of worrying about flying the green, they could fire straight at pins, knowing the structure would stop anything that rolled through. Course management went out the window. Players were aiming at the grandstand on purpose. Aria Judanugarn's approach literally bounced off the grandstand and kicked back toward the green, giving her a look at birdie she had no business having. Erin Ryu's ball landed in the stands, and she still chipped in for eagle from the seating area. Golf Channel's Brandel Chambly ripped the setup apart on air, calling it an embarrassment for a major championship. When your course design turns into a backboard competition, something has gone seriously wrong. But that was just the beginning. 5 players finished regulation tied at 7 under, with Mao Saigo, Arya Judanugarn, Ruaning Yin, Hyo Ju Kim, and Lindy Duncan heading to a 5-way playoff. 5 players, 1 hole, the biggest sudden death playoff in LPGA Major Championship history. Nobody had ever seen anything like it at this level. During the playoff, Judanugarn nearly whiffed her shot as her club barely caught the ball, sending it dribbling forward a few pathetic yards while millions of viewers cringed at once. The gallery went silent. Commentators didn't know what to say. That's the kind of moment that stays with you for the rest of your career, the kind you see replaying in your head every time you close your eyes. Mao Saigo kept her composure through all of it and won her first major title, a moment she dreamed about her entire life. But even the celebration came with drama. Following the Chevron tradition of jumping into Poppy's pond behind the 18th green, Saigo leaped in and immediately started struggling. Her caddy had to grab her and help keep her head above water. "I thought I was going to drown," she admitted afterward. From winning a major to nearly drowning in about 3 seconds flat, the fallout came fast. Officials announced the Chevron Championship would move to Memorial Park in Houston for 2026. IMG was out as tournament operator. The entire setup was getting a complete overhaul from top to bottom. When you have grandstands acting as backstops, a near whiff in a playoff, and your champion almost drowning on live television, you don't just tweak a few things. You start over. Sometimes a tournament goes so far off the rails that the only option is to pack up, move somewhere else, and pretend it never happened. That was the 2025 Chevron Championship. So those were the top 10 most controversial moments in women's golf that happened in 2025. What a year it was. From slow play wars to collapsed players to teenagers getting handed spots they didn't earn, this season had everything. The LPGA brought more drama in 1 year than some sports see in a decade. And honestly, that's what makes it worth watching. But here's the thing. Without these moments, golf would just be another quiet sport nobody talks about. No arguments at the dinner table, no clips blowing up on social media, no debates in the comments section. These controversies, these meltdowns, these wild finishes, they're what make us actually care. Think about it. Players like Charley Hull don't go viral because they hit perfect shots. They go viral because they're real, because they sit down on tee boxes when they're frustrated, because they smoke cigarettes while signing autographs and bet 10 grand they can quit. That's what connects with people. Not polished PR statements, but raw, unfiltered moments that remind us these athletes are human. And that's what brings new fans to the game. Young people scrolling through TikTok don't stop for a perfectly executed iron shot. They stop for drama, for chaos, for moments that make them say what the hell just happened. Women's golf delivered that over and over again in 2025. We come to these videos to escape the routine, to forget about work and stress, and the same boring stuff we deal with every day. Golf with family on the weekends is great, but watching a champion nearly drown in a pond or a 5-way playoff where someone almost whiffs on live TV, that's the stuff we remember. That's what we talk about. That's what makes the sport explode. Some people say controversy is bad for golf, that it hurts the image of the sport, that players should be role models who never mess up and always say the right thing. But that's not real life, and fans know the difference. They can smell fake from a mile away. The players who show their true selves, the ones who get angry, who make mistakes, who don't hide behind media training, those are the ones who build actual fan bases. Those are the ones people root for. Look at how many new fans discovered women's golf this year because of a viral smoking video, or because of a debate about who deserves a sponsor exemption, or because someone collapsed on live television and the whole world held their breath. These moments aren't distractions from the sport. They are the sport. The competition is just part of it. The LPGA has room to improve, no question. Pace of play is still a mess. The way they publicly shamed players for penalties felt unnecessary. The Saudi money conversation isn't going anywhere. And sponsor exemptions will keep causing debates as long as famous names get priority over actual talent. But none of that changes the fact that 2025 put women's golf on the map in a way it hasn't been in years. More eyes, more clicks, more conversations, more people tuning in who never cared before. That's growth. That's progress. Even if it came wrapped in controversy. And let's be honest, golf needs this. For too long, the sport has had a reputation for being slow, boring, and only for a certain type of person. But when you see Charley Hull sitting on a tee box refusing to pretend she's not annoyed, or Nelly Korda grinding through a winless season without making excuses, or a 22-year-old from Japan winning a tournament a month after being publicly embarrassed, that changes things. That shows people what golf really is. A mental battle, a test of character, a sport where anything can happen on any given day. So what's coming in 2026? If this year taught us anything, expect the unexpected. New drama will unfold. New stars will rise. New controversies will break the internet. The Saudi partnership will play out, and we'll see which players show up and which ones sit out. The slow play debate will keep raging. Someone will sign a wrong scorecard. Someone will have a meltdown. Someone will go viral for something nobody saw coming. And we'll be right here breaking it all down. 2025 was just the beginning. Women's golf isn't slowing down. It's just getting started. The best stories are still ahead of us. If you made it this far, you're a real one. Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss what's coming next. Drop a comment with which moment shocked you the most, and share this with someone who needs to see the chaos women's golf brought this year. I'll catch you in the next one.